When it came to hunting down the world's most wanted man, it wasn't a Reaper drone that delivered the fatal blow. It was a syringe. For the CIA, it was a mission years in the making, spanning continents, costing millions, and defining a decade-long manhunt. Cutting-edge tech, deep cover operations, and shadowy assassinations all led to one decisive moment, delivered not by a soldier, but by a doctor. On today's episode of the Infographics Show, we're revealing how the CIA used fake vaccines to track down and eliminate Osama Bin Laden. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. In 1996, the Central Intelligence Agency was repurposed for the threats facing the dawning of a new millennium. The Soviet Union had been dead and buried half a decade. But a new threat started to emerge, and it was one that even seasoned CIA operatives were struggling to convince the rest of the agency and Washington was real. In May of the same year, Jamaad Ahmed al-Fadl walked into the American embassy in Eritrea, stating that he wanted to defect. When the embassy staffers asked who he was defecting from, al-Fadl casually responded, Al-Qaeda. The staffers were confused. They had never heard of the organization, but when a phone call was placed to Washington, alarm bells began to sound inside the CIA. Al-Fadl was recruited in the 1980s by Mujahideen recruiters working through American mosques, with the explicit permission of U.S. intelligence. The Soviets were occupying Afghanistan, and America was eager to exact revenge for all the pain inflicted by Soviet arms, training, and even direct military support in North Vietnam and North Korea. Cash was soon flowing into the various Mujahideen groups through Pakistani intermediaries, along with a growing number of arms such as the fabled scourge of Soviet helicopters, the Stinger Manpad. But as the U.S. government celebrated the hefty blood toll they were exacting on the Soviets, few were paying attention to just where U.S. arms and funding was ending up, or more specifically, who. Osama bin Laden was quickly rising through the ranks of Mujahideen, financing the war against the Soviets with his family's vast wealth from their businesses back in Saudi Arabia. But bin Laden had very troubling anti-Western sentiments that nobody seemed to be paying any particular attention to. He was, after all, the Soviets' problem, for the moment. After being recruited in 1989, al-Fadl went from being a fighter to a business agent responsible for raising funds for the organization. Yet he rankled at the favoritism he saw on display within the organization. Egyptian fighters and agents, with their connections to the government and other Islamic groups, were receiving over double the pay that he and other Muslim fighters were. Incensed, al-Fadl decided to enrich himself off the back of the organization, stealing over $110,000 from them before being discovered. Bin Laden was furious and demanded the money back, but al-Fadl knew money alone wouldn't satisfy bin Laden's rage. There was only one option. He had to defect to the United States. Bin Laden had started to attract the attention of select members within the U.S. intelligence agencies, leading to the establishment of a CIA-run standalone unit, Alex Station. Al-Fadl was soon smuggled into the United States under the protection of the CIA, where after debriefing him, they were shocked to discover the scope of the threat that bin Laden actually posed. Considered a moderate player with aspirations of terrorism, al-Fadl revealed that bin Laden had actually planned multiple terror operations. But his ultimate goal was to get his hands on nuclear material, and that quickly made him a rising threat. A dirty little secret from the end of the Cold War was Russia's loss of tons of nuclear materials in the chaos and corruption of the Soviet breakup. U.S. intelligence, sometimes with cooperation from Russia and other times without, had been pursuing rumors of any material, enriched or not, across the world. Al-Fadl's claims were verified when a second Al-Qaeda operative defected to American authorities. Yet despite this, the CIA and the wider government weren't taking the threat posed by bin Laden very seriously. Alex Station soon developed a reputation as alarmists, which led to increasing reluctance within the task force to share new intelligence. An arrest warrant had been issued for bin Laden, and yet a few outside of the task force understood the seriousness of the threat posed by Al-Qaeda, a group mobilizing thousands of extremists to violence. Under pressure from the Sudanese government, which was attempting to repair relations with Western nations, bin Laden fled from Sudan to Afghanistan. Alex Station reached out to a network of Afghan collaborators previously armed and funded to track a Pakistani gunman responsible for killing 2 CIA agents in 1993. Known as Trodpint, the group had succeeded in that mission. Impressed by their results, the CIA greenlit the transfer of the Afghan agents involved into a new task force with one sole objective: to hunt down bin Laden. Stationed in the Kandahar Valley, Trodpint developed a plan to capture bin Laden, with the goal of extraditing him either to the U.S. or a friendly Arab nation where he could stand trial. However, after giving their blessing in early 1998 to go ahead with the operation, senior CIA officials suddenly canceled the plot. Al-Qaeda's presence in Afghanistan had simply grown too strong, and the Taliban was showing a high degree of cooperation, there were fears that a capture attempt would turn into an all-out gun battle, one that the Trodpint team might not be able to win without direct air support from U.S. forces. The resulting collateral damage would be too high to bear, and the operation was canceled. Then in August of 1998, two trucks pulled up outside the American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. The back of the trucks had been loaded with explosives, and at exactly 10:30 a.m., the bombers flicked a switch and detonated their payloads. Over 200 people would be killed, with over 4,000 injured. 56 Americans died in the attacks. Al-Qaeda was quick to claim credit, and by November, the United States indicted the group in absentia for the attacks. By December, CIA Director George Tenet had made the capture and killing of Osama Bin Laden a top priority. Alex Station was finally being listened to. The task force underwent a leadership shakeup, drawing up a brand new plan for the elimination of Bin Laden. The new strategy would involve significant resources not just from the CIA, but the FBI, NSA, DIA, the military, and others. Rather than a traditional intelligence operation, the plan to eliminate Bin Laden better resembled a military operation. The goal was to penetrate into Afghanistan and get American and Afghan agents inside Bin Laden's various sanctuaries provided to him by the Taliban. Afghanistan would be surrounded by a ring of covert CIA bases, each working on a plan to infiltrate Bin Laden's strongholds and recruit local assets to help track, identify, and capture or eliminate him. Alex Station's own chief would enter Afghanistan as part of a black CIA team and make contact with Northern Alliance leader Ahmad Shah Massoud. Massoud's separatists were fighting both the Taliban and their Al-Qaeda allies, and they were a key source of intelligence on both groups. By the end of 1999, the CIA had enough intelligence to suggest deploying special forces directly inside Afghanistan. By their estimation, a special forces raid with Air Force support had as much as a 95% chance of succeeding. But senior figures within the Special Forces community were wary of such an operation. Trust still needed to be built with the Northern Alliance, and senior SOCOM, or Special Operations Command officials, were cautious about conducting such a risky operation deep in hostile territory. The memory of the failed rescue attempt of Iranian hostages still marred SOCOM decision-making. Frustrated by SOCOM's hesitation, the CIA's Alex Station nonetheless continued to build a network of informants and agents across Afghanistan. The intelligence flowing in came from throughout the nation, giving the CIA excellent insight into the movements of Al-Qaeda. Much to the CIA's dismay, a special forces raid was continuously delayed. For the members of Alex Station, the threat of Al-Qaeda was becoming critical. They had spread the growth of the terror movement to over 60 countries. It was a cancer spreading across the world. By late 1999, there was undeniable intelligence that Al-Qaeda was planning something big. The intelligence was deemed credible and serious, prompting the CIA to set into motion what Counterterrorism Center Director Kofor Black would later call the largest collection and disruption activity in the history of mankind. Massive resources were brought to bear in an attempt to identify, disrupt, and prevent Al-Qaeda's pending operation. But the terror group's information security procedures were creating an intelligence blackout. To attempt to pierce the veil of secrecy, the CIA focused on three groups within Al-Qaeda: individuals known to have carried out previous terror attacks, senior personnel inside and outside of Afghanistan, and senior members Abu Zubaydah and Mohammed Atef. The training of pilots who would later hijack American airplanes, however, continued undetected. However, a joint U.S. SOCOM Defense Intelligence Agency operation, codenamed Able Danger, identified what they believed to be an Al-Qaeda cell, nicknamed the Brooklyn Cell for the association of members to New York. Able Danger had also identified 3 of the 9/11 hijackers. However, a lack of intelligence prevented the arrest of members of the terror cell, with similar missed opportunities plaguing the entire CIA-led effort to prevent the 9/11 attacks. Famously, 2 hijackers identified by the CIA were allowed to enter the United States thanks to mismanagement of data within the FBI. By spring of 2000, Alex Station was pushing for the use of Predator drones inside Afghanistan. Loitering high enough to avoid detection, the drones resulted in several high-confidence sightings of Bin Laden, especially near his Tarnak Farms residence. The next year, the CIA pushed for the arming of Predator drones. Outfitted with Hellfire missiles, a single drone had the power to do what once required a complex, high-risk special operations raid. But at the time, the concept of armed drones was a political powder keg, causing fierce debate inside the Bush administration. A series of classified war games were launched directly from the CIA headquarters at Langley, with armed drones firing on mock-ups in the Nevada desert. The technology to track, identify, and fire on an individual using a remote loitering drone presented some challenges, causing a lack of faith in the entire endeavor. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice backed the effort, but declared that an armed drone wasn't reliable enough. There was also serious consideration regarding collateral damage and the striking of a misidentified target, which could result in global backlash against the US. The idea of a robotic drone killing innocent human beings could quickly become a PR nightmare. In the days prior to 9/11, the CIA was cleared to fly armed drones, but with no plans to actually fire their onboard weapons. The drones and their missiles wouldn't arrive until September 16th, nearly a week after the September 11th terror attacks. Host nation approval to actually fly armed drones would be granted on October 7th. As the world reeled from the deadliest terror attacks in history, the CIA was gearing up to eliminate bin Laden. Alex Station would continue to operate until 2005. Al-Qaeda had grown into a true multinational threat, one that far exceeded the resources a single operational group could manage by themselves. By then, efforts were being refocused, from capturing bin Laden to tackling the greater terror threat posed by Al-Qaeda and a growing number of other groups. Their presence in Iraq and Afghanistan was proving destabilizing, and the effort to kill or capture bin Laden took a back seat. But the CIA hadn't forgotten. The last intelligence reports indicated that bin Laden had likely escaped into Pakistan after the Battle of Tora Bora, narrowly avoiding capture by the US military. Despite cooperation from Pakistan in America's war against the Taliban and insurgents, suspicions inside the CIA were rising that Pakistan was double-crossing the US. Whenever an air raid or a strike was planned on a known group of Taliban or terrorists hiding inside Pakistan or near the border, the group seemed to mysteriously disappear beforehand. Further, there were growing reports that Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence Agency, with known ties to terror groups targeting India, were heavily involved with the Taliban and other groups fighting the US-led coalition. Even as the trail grew cold, some within the CIA were still gunning for bin Laden. They suspected that bin Laden's personal courier, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, could be the key to discerning bin Laden's whereabouts. But it was claimed that al-Kuwaiti had been injured during the Battle of Tora Bora and died a few days later. Over the next few years, CIA interrogation of captured al-Qaeda operatives in notorious black sites and Guantanamo Bay confirmed that al-Kuwaiti was very much alive. Pressing more captured operatives, the CIA tracked al-Kuwaiti to Abbottabad inside of Pakistan. The suspicion that Pakistan was heavily involved in not just supporting terrorism but possibly hiding bin Laden was thick enough to directly affect cooperation between the US and the ISI. Al-Kuwaiti's exact location was confirmed via the help of Pakistani informants recruited by the CIA and a sweeping surveillance operation by the NSA targeting cells across Pakistan and the Persian Gulf. Then came the break. Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti picked up the phone to call his relatives outside of the country, and the NSA was listening. A US intelligence team working inside Pakistan made visual contact with al-Kuwaiti, following him as he drove from Peshawar to an imposing home in Abbottabad. The home was surrounded by a tall concrete fence, 2 gates, multiple additional walls to compartmentalize the entire compound, and a trash burning pit to avoid using public trash collection services. The main residence's windows were all opaque and impossible to see through, with a 7-foot privacy wall surrounding an upstairs balcony. The CIA immediately suspected that a senior al-Qaeda figure was being hidden there, and their suspicions that Pakistan was involved were deep enough that the agency avoided sharing this intelligence with their ISI partners. Abbottabad is the equivalent of America's West Point, a city where Pakistan's senior-most military and intelligence officials all make their home, and where multiple prestigious military academies are located. The compound had security both within and without. Its presence in Abbottabad made it such a sensitive target that no doubt Pakistan's intelligence believed the United States would not or could not carry out a strike against it. Pakistan had significantly underestimated the capabilities of America's most advanced and secretive aircraft. But first, in order to avoid a full-blown war, the CIA had to be sure that the suspect facility really was holding a senior al-Qaeda figure, or maybe even Osama Bin Laden himself. The compound was under constant surveillance, an effort that had to be hidden from Pakistan as well, in order to avoid tipping off the ISI. High-flying drones filmed a tall figure taking walks behind the privacy wall of the second-floor balcony. A detailed analysis of the footage led to a high degree of confidence that the individual was Osama bin Laden. Further observation of the compound showed that there was no internet or phone connection, and the registered owners of the home did not appear to work. Banking records revealed that they did not have the income necessary to afford a huge compound. Plans were starting to take shape. A B-2 stealth bomber could easily penetrate Pakistan's air defenses and deliver several 2,000-pound bombs to flatten the compound with very little risk of collateral damage. But an air or even missile strike would not result in confirmation that bin Laden was present. Additionally, Pakistan could claim innocent civilians were present at the compound. Boots were going to have to be on the ground, and that would require evading Pakistan's air defenses. The Air Force had just the aircraft for the job, specially modified Black Hawk helicopters, the only stealth helicopters in the world, which still remain officially unacknowledged to this day. However, the incredible risk of the raid meant that President Obama wanted complete assurance that bin Laden was present, and that would require a huge gamble, and ultimately become one of the most tragic aspects of an otherwise incredibly successful operation. Dr. Shakil Afridi was working in the Khyber Tribal District as the head of health services, having overseen numerous US-funded vaccination programs. Details remain highly classified, with even Pakistan's government still fully unaware of the exact details. What is known is that at some point, Dr. Afridi was contacted by the CIA, who requested his aid in carrying out an intelligence-gathering operation. Exactly how much Dr. Afridi knew about the CIA's true mission remains uncertain. Some claim that he was unaware he was part of a covert op, but that seems unlikely. Colleagues at Jamrud Hospital recall his unexplained absences, including several extended leaves to, quote, handle business in Abbottabad. At some point, he took 6 World Health Organization cooler boxes without proper authorization, widely believed to be in use for the CIA's operation. Dr. Afridi helped run a fake vaccination drive for hepatitis B, delivering shots to dozens of homes in the region of the suspect compound. The CIA was looking to confirm bin Laden's presence through DNA testing, either his or that of his children. At some point, either Dr. Afridi or one of his 17 workers arrived at the compound to give their shots, collecting DNA via vaccination needles. A special CIA team in Abbottabad itself, using portable hardware, confirmed a DNA match. Bin Laden had been found, and he was hiding right under the protection of the Pakistani military. Dr. Afridi would be arrested for his involvement in the plot to eliminate Osama bin Laden and declared a national traitor. After undergoing torture at the hand of the ISI agents in their headquarters, Dr. Afridi was sentenced to 33 years in prison. His 17 health workers lost the right to work inside Pakistan. In retaliation, the U.S. cut foreign aid to Pakistan by $33 million, one for each year of the doctor's sentence. Today, Dr. Afridi sits in solitary confinement inside a maximum security prison cell, his cell reportedly barely larger than he is. To the United States, he's a hero. To Pakistan, a traitor. All for helping bring the world's most notorious terrorist to justice. You've seen how the CIA pinpointed the terror leader's location. Now watch how SEAL Team took down Osama bin Laden minute by minute to see how the dramatic mission unfolded. Or click this other video instead.